Now the Supreme Court has refused to grant permission for the felling of 473 additional trees in the Aravalli Hill region for now. I have Sambhav Sharma joining me with more details. Sambhav, what more can you tell us?
Well, this matter was before the Chief Justice of India, Surikant's bench. And here, what the Supreme Court has noted is important. One, as you rightly pointed out, the top court has refused to grant permission for the felling of 473 additional trees in the Aravalli Hill region, as of now. And also, the petition was filed by DDA, the Delhi Development Authority, in the Supreme Court. A matter was before the Chief Justice of India, and the hearing was held in the Supreme Court, where two important aspects were put forth before the top court. And the Supreme Court has questioned the DDA about the status of nearly 1,16,000 trees mentioned in the previous proceedings, earlier hearings in the Supreme Court, and sought a detailed compliance report. So on one hand, the Supreme Court has not granted permission to cut trees in the Aravalli region 1 and sought a detailed compliance report too. So these two important aspects from this particular hearing. And because see, Aravalli is very much in the news, and also the Supreme Court's intervention in December 29th intervention, taking suo motu cognizance of this particular case over the definition of Aravallis earlier given by the Supreme Court in November 20th statement. So this whole case is very much in news, and here the DDA's petition in the Supreme Court, seeking permission to cut the tree, but here the Supreme Court has clearly refused to grant permission as of now, and slated the matter for further hearing on January 19th. So next date of hearing in this particular case is January 19th. And also the Supreme Court has questioned the DDA about the status of over 1 lakh trees it mentioned in the previous hearing. So the Delhi Development Authority will have to file a compliance report before January 19th in the Supreme Court. And also the Solicitor General, S.D. Tushar Mehta, has said that the full compliance will be, as he has assured, full compliance with what the Supreme Court is saying. And on the other hand, what is more important, what is equally important, is that the Supreme Court has
Sambhav, stay on with me. Now, Chief Justice of India, Surikant, said no tree cutting would be allowed until full compliance with the court's earlier directions are ensured. Sambhav, what more can you tell us on this development?
Well, absolutely the same hearing in the Supreme Court on the DDA's Delhi Development Authority's petition. The petition was before the Chief Justice of India, Surikant's bench, and the Supreme Court has said that it would not take any decision in haste. Which, because the Aravalli issue is very much in, as we are discussing, it's not just in news, it's a very sensitive issue, and Supreme Court is hearing this particular case. And here the Supreme Court has made it clear that it will not take any decision in haste. And also, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta in the Supreme Court has assured the top court that full compliance will be, as he has assured, full compliance with the Supreme Court direction. However, one important point here to be noted is that the bench has acknowledged that there is a need for the widening of the roads, and also roads near the Army Hospital where these trees are planted. But on the other hand, the Supreme Court has stressed that tree cutting must be reduced to zero while completing the project. So here a very important hearing in the Supreme Court, where the top court has refused to grant permission to cut around 473 trees in the Aravalli region, because this whole region comes under the Aravalli range in a way. Aravalli is not just in Delhi, but also in other states like Rajasthan, Gujarat, and very much a debatable contentious issue.
Sambhav, stay on with me. We have Vimlendu Jha. He's an environmentalist. Vimlendu, you know how this has been progressing so far. Now, of course, the Chief Justice of India has said that no tree cutting would be allowed until full compliance with the court's earlier directions. What would you like to say on that?
I think it's a welcome decision by the Chief Justice of India. The fact that, imagine the last couple of weeks there's been so much of hearing. Even the Chief Justice has actually set aside or put on in abeyance the previous order of 20th November with regard to Aravallis. And now for the DDA to move that application with regard to cutting of 400 trees for broadening of roads, I think the fact that the Chief Justice has actually denied this permission is a welcome move. We need to understand the backdrop of all of this is not just conservation of Aravallis and of trees for the sake of saving of trees, but the context of it is the larger ecological significance that this ecological resource has. So 400 trees perhaps could be a nuisance for the government in terms of broadening of roads or making mobility convenient. But the inconvenience that this entire so-called development and plundering of Aravallis and the forest land and forest of our area is being causing to the lungs of our children is horrific, and I think it's very necessary and it's a welcome move by the Chief Justice to really put this to not grant that permission and to deny the permission to DDA with regard to this.
All right, Vimlendu. The court has said that it wouldn't allow any action in haste. What message does that send out to development authorities like the DDA?
It's important that development is not just about construction. Development, largely the broader sense of development, is also the natural heritage that needs to be preserved, and not in terms of infrastructure. We need to start understanding that our trees, our forests, and our other resources are also part of infrastructure, in fact, more critical infrastructure. Infrastructure cannot be just cement and making cars move. Making life easier for cars, it can't be the prerogative of the government. Making people move and people's lives better should be the actual ideal prerogative of the government and of these authorities. So if DDA has been denied this permission for the fact that there's been so much of tree cutting that's been going on in the name of development, in the name of construction, in the name of redevelopment, like more than 16,500 trees were actually chopped off in South Delhi with regard to that the GRPA that we're talking about in terms of Sarojini Nagar and different areas. And imagine the backdrop of all of this is the AQI of 500 to 800 on a normal day, and therefore rather than doing enough by the government in terms of really control this air pollution, is going ahead and granting permission left, right and center so as to cut down the trees. As in the only thing perhaps the citizens of Delhi and Delhi NCR have, these natural barriers and the natural pollutant curers in the form of trees. Because there's nothing in terms of government action that we see on the ground, and therefore to really chop off or take even those trees away from the citizens and the lungs of our children and the elderly is very, very unfortunate.
And Vimlendu, my final question to you is that, why are the Aravalli Hills ecologically so critical for Delhi and the NCR region? If you could help our viewers understand that.
So Aravalli is, we are talking about 140,000 square kilometer of land area, and it is not just rocks assembled on one top of another. It's one of the oldest mountain ranges, and this 700-kilometer range that we're talking about. The three very, very critical functions of the Aravallis is one, that it's the actual dust barrier and the climate barrier between Thar and this entire Indo-Gangetic plain. Second, that entire water recharge, the water sovereignty of the area and water sufficiency of the entire region depends on this entire Aravalli range. And by range, I don't really mean only what the previous definition of the Supreme Court was with regard to only 100 meters and above in that sense. Everything, the entire land mass, 140,000 square kilometer area, adds as a soak ground for our water. It's actually our air barrier and our climate barrier. And also, overall, biodiversity of the entire region depends on this ecological resource, which is in continuity. So, therefore, disrupting this entire Aravalli resource is completely going to be counterproductive, not just for our air, but also for our water and overall biodiversity of the region.
All right, Vimlendu, thank you for joining me on the broadcast.